So good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to episode 1 of our Soil Mastery webinar series. Today we are talking about how to stop the soil tax, and to find, and find your farm's weakness, your farm's weakest link. And I'm really delighted to have you all here. But before we begin, I want to extend a very special acknowledgement. This webinar is made possible by Mbeguzetu Farmers Hub in Nakuru County. So through an important collaborator in the person of Dr. Immaculate Maina, we are incredibly grateful for their support and partnership in bringing this critical conversation to you today. So before we begin, before we really get started, I want us to do a quick reality check. I want us to look at the actual financial costs of guessing what our crop needs. You will find out pretty soon what I mean by that. So on this screen, you will find this QR code, and also you will find a URL, a short URL under it. Maybe someone can also drop it in the chat for those who were not able to type fast to click. So please scan or click on the link. It's called the Soil Tax Calculator. Click on it right now. Now, when you click on it, I'm going to also show you what that looks like from my end, so we can also see this together. Okay, let's get that over to the chat. Soil tax calculator. So you just need to click on this link in the chat to get to the page. Just a moment. Yes. So when you go to this link, you are going to see a page like this. So this page allows you to interact with this tool to generally understand how much money you are leaving on the ground every year. So if I have some volunteer in the chat, can anyone just volunteer some country and we can fill it together? You can just type the country and we can fill it together. I believe majority of us on this call are from Kenya, so I'm going to give it the privilege. So Kenya. So let's say your country is Kenya and you are growing potato, and your farm size is 2 hectares, okay, or maybe let's say 3 hectares. Now you can play with this and see for yourself what I'm talking about. And you've been farming for, let's say, 10 years, or maybe less, we can say 8 years. And you have not done soil testing. This is optional, so if you know how much you spend, you can also put in. Now, if you click on this button, after a few seconds, it will tell you how much you have been losing for not doing soil testing. So in terms of annual foregone yield value, you are foregoing 262,080 Kenya shillings every year. So cumulatively over 8 years, you have lost 2.3 million Kenya shillings just by not testing the soil. At the same time, you are also losing 7,722 Kenya shillings every year due to a mismatch between the fertilizer you use and your soil, because you're not doing soil testing. Over 8 years, that's 68,000 Kenya shillings. And now we're in the age of carbon credits. Now, if you're not doing soil testing, there's no way to do something called MRV, which is one of the steps to determine how much credit you are helping the planet save. So unknowingly, you're also losing 104,000 Kenya shillings over the last 8 years in Kenya in carbon credits. So totally, your farm over the last 8 years have lost 2.5 million Kenya shillings. That is a staggering amount of money to be, keeping on the table. Now, I want to know if anyone has any result to share in the chat. Jordan is on the list. Trust me, I think we have almost every country. Oh, you're right. There's no Jordan. So maybe the reason is because there are no available data to run this simulation for the country. Sorry about that. So, any takers in the chat? Anyone who have tried this tool yet? Albania. Okay, let's see Albania real quick, and then we can go ahead. Albania is also missing, so that means we don't have data to run this simulation for Albania. All right, so let's proceed. Now we'll have more chat about this in the last minutes of this. So soil is the foundation of agriculture. We all know this. It is where water, nutrients, microorganisms, and the plant roots, this is where they all meet, right in the soil. And despite its importance, the majority of farmers all over the world, particularly in Kenya, feed the soil solely out of habit. So the way you used to do it, this is how you feed the soil. And that habit is not based on what the soil actually needs. As a result, okay. So as a result, many farmers, they lose between 30 to 50% of their yield potential every season. So why does this happen? It happens because of a common pattern. Farmers buy the same fertilizer blend every season. In some cases, they copy their neighbors, or they just use what worked 5 years ago. The problem is that soil does not stay the same every year. If you go back, and I want us to go to scan this QR code again for the second evaluation. If you try this other test, you can also see how different soil properties can influence the performance of the crop. So let's try this again. The second code. I'm gonna put the link in the chat as well. So the same similar bit.ly/crop-suitability. So let's try this again. I'm going to share my screen and we can go through this together. So this is what it looks like. Okay. So if we select, I think we did potato the previous time. So let's look for potato. And let's say you know your soil texture. What percentage of clay, sand, silt, you can adjust this to match what your exact composition is. So let's try and make the sand quite high. And I want us to see how that reflects generally in terms of growing potatoes. So let's make the sand 61%. And the pH level, let's assume it is slightly acidic on the good side. Okay. Organic matter, these are information you will get when you test your soil, but because we don't have it now, we're just kind of simulating. But if you're going to use this tool for your farm, it has to be from your farm soil testing, the real value, so you can get real result. So let's say 12. 12 is a very common number as well for organic matter. And then for this part, we are going to select a farm in Kenya. So I'm going to show you my screen, and then we can find a farm together on Google Maps. So let's go to Kenya. So this is Kenya on the map. So let's go to Nakuru. Okay. And let's look for any plots and get the GPS coordinate, because this has to be a real feeling of how this works. So let's pick this plot here, or this one. It looks very green. And I'm gonna copy the GPS coordinates of this farm, just somewhere in the middle. All right. So we're gonna go back to our tool and then paste that GPS coordinate. Wait for it to confirm. Okay, you see it says Nakuru, Kenya. So that means confirmation. Then click on this. Be sure to select all year, so all the months are selected. When you click on this, the tool will fetch the average temperature over the last 30 years for that location. What is the average temperature? It's 15.6. And the temperature over the last 30 years has gone as low as 6.2. That is like very cold temperature. But the highest is a meager 26.9 degrees Celsius. In terms of the last 30 years, the total amount of rainfall on the average is 1,200. That's roughly correct. And this data is retrieved from the NASA Power Platform. And the elevation also is fairly flat. That farm is fairly flat. Now, if I adjust this, if you think it's correct, you can make it from flat to moderately sloped or very steep if your farm is on a hill. But according to the data from the satellites, this farm is quite flat. So once we click this, it says in terms of drainage capacity of the soil, it is 2. This is 2 out of 5. That means it's very slow drainage. So in other words, excess moisture lingers after the rain. Okay. And it says that on a scale of 1 to 5, potato can't grow on that farm. Of course, there are a few things to take care of, like the clay level is slightly high, the silt is slightly low, blah, blah, organic matter is too low. Based on the information you've provided, it's now providing you with, a meaningful advice, etc. And these are the methodologies that we use to design this tool. Okay, so you can play with this, or we can play with this after this webinar, and we can have some follow-on. Now, if your crop is not suitable for these conditions, it will recommend what to grow. So let's try and make the clay very, very high, okay, just for simulation's sake. So it's marginally suitable, but it says if you must grow something that is suitable, you can consider quinoa, which is a grain crop. It's most suitable. Alternatively, you can grow maize. But for that condition of the soil, the potato that you so want to grow may not be the best for it. So, and on and on and on and on. So this is how you can, okay, let's go back to our presentation. These tools are for free. They'll remain free as long as we're alive. So what am I getting at with all this? This guessing game that farmers do, it leads to 3 devastating consequences. When you don't test your soil, there are 3 huge consequences. The first one is economic waste. on nutrients that the soil does not need. The second one is the hidden shortages that go completely unaddressed, keeping your yield artificially low. Your farm is potentially or can potentially give you a lot more yield and money than you are currently getting. But because you're not testing the soil, you do not know this and you are missing out on this opportunity. The third consequence is nutrient imbalance. So where you have excess of one nutrient, it actually locks up another nutrient. For instance, if your soil has too much phosphorus, this can block zinc from enriching the plant, from reaching the plant. Okay. So these are the three huge consequences. Now let's go to the next phase. So if we are spending all this money on NPK and urea, so why are our yields still low? The answer lies in a core scientific principle from the 1800s. Now that principle is called Liebig's law of the minimum and the barrel. So a man called Justus von Liebig, he said that a plant is like a barrel made of wooden staves, like wooden staves, the small woods that go around the barrel. The barrel can only hold as much water as the height of the shortest stave. In our example, the shortest stave is zinc. So this barrel cannot hold water above the level of zinc. Now, imagine a wooden barrel where each stave represents a single nutrient, just like we see here. If one stave, let's say zinc, is broken or is missing, the barrel starts to leak. It does not matter how much expensive nitrogen or phosphorus you pour into this barrel or your farm. The plant simply cannot use the excess if zinc is deficient. In other words, one missing nutrient limits every other nutrient. So, how many staves make up a barrel? In terms of plants, they need 16 essential staves or nutrients to complete their life cycle. They don't need 3 of them. They need all 16 in different amounts, not just NPK. 16. They range from the big structural elements like carbon and hydrogen, down to the primary and secondary nutrients, all the way to the micronutrients like zinc and boron. So for an element to be on this list, it must meet 4 strict criteria. Number 1 is that it must be a chemical element. The second one, it is required by all plants to complete their life cycle. It cannot be substituted by anything else. And it must have a direct role in the plant structure and metabolism. So all the chemicals we saw earlier, they meet all 4 criteria. Now let's now that we know the barrel leaks at its lowest point, how do we find our shortest stave in your field? I want us to look at the primary suspects. First is nitrogen, and it is referred to as the engine of your farm. Nitrogen is responsible for chlorophyll, the greenery in the plant. The green you see is mostly nitrogen, and they are responsible for the vegetative growth. Your plant will become like leafy and greeny if there are more nitrogens. So how do you know if nitrogen is your shortest stave? The classic symptom is the yellowing of the leaves, starting from the older leaves at the bottom of the plant. So by mere investigating, I believe many farmers on the call know this, by mere investigating a leaf, starting from the oldest one, if you notice some yellowing, that's a sign of deficiency of nitrogen. That's your shortest stave at that point in time. Next is phosphorus. This is responsible for root and reproduction in the farm, in the plant. And With phosphorus deficiency, you will see dark green or even purplish leaves. These pictures are just for illustration, but every farmer knows this. But most importantly is that you will notice that the plants become stunted. They don't grow as tall as they should. And even if they grow as tall as they should, when it's time for flowering, they would be delaying the flowering. So crucially, phosphorus does not move in the soil. So it must be placed near the roots at planting. And this is why we have this sort of basal application, as they call it, for NPKs. Then we have potassium. Potassium is the stress fighter. Let's call it the antibodies. It helps regulate and prevent diseases in the plant and giving your crop disease tolerance and strong stems. Now, if your crops, they look like they are falling over before a harvest, or if you see yellowing or maybe some kind of burnt, like browning around the leaf edges, it's likely that your missing stave is potassium. Potassium is likely missing in the chain of nutrients. But more often, these barrel leaks, they leak most at the micronutrients level. For example, zinc deficiency is incredibly common in African soils, especially for rice and maize. So the problem is that you will see that, for maize, you will see like a white streak, just like you see in this picture, even though it's a bit yellowish, but you could see some white streak. And sometimes it appears as stunted growth. Now, the irony is that you may buy 200 kilograms of NPK and the crop will still suffer. Whereas if you only added 5 to 10 kilograms of sulfur to that 200 kilograms of NPK, the crop will blossom. Imagine how small 5 kilograms is compared to 200 kilograms. But it is a lot more benefit. Without it, nothing happens. So now, before you invest in fertilizer, always pay attention to every nutrient, especially these little guys, because they unlock the rest of your fertilizer investment. So sometimes you put the right nutrients in the soil, the micronutrients, macro, all of them, but the crop still struggles. Why is that? Because the environment is causing the barrel to leak. So even if you do everything right on the nutrient front, the environment can also be frustrating and leaking money in your farm. The biggest culprit, the biggest suspect is the pH. Soil pH is the key that unlocks nutrients. I want to look at this pH scale, or the diagram you see on the screen. So if your soil is highly acidic, so acidic is from 6.9 and below, and alkaline is from 8 to 14. Okay. So if your soil is highly acidic, let's say it's below 5.5, the danger zone, every phosphorus and calcium and magnesium in your soil, no matter how much phosphorus you pour in that soil, if that soil is acidic, they become trapped. The plant can never be able to use them. So pH, they are physically in the dirt, but the plant, the nutrients are in the soil, but the plant cannot drink them. So it's important to keep your soil pH at optimal range in order to unlock your fertilizer investment. And to do that, your pH must be within 6 to 7.5. Now, if you don't test your soil, you will not know the pH level. Are you seeing where we're going with this? The next leakage that could happen, and this has nothing to do with your pH or zinc or fertilizer, it is timing. When you put the nutrients, it matters. And I believe many farmers on the call know this already. Applying the right nutrients at the wrong time is simply just guessing. For example, nitrogen should be applied to capture, number one, the rapid growth phases, such as the tillering or silking, tillering for rice, silking for maize. And phosphorus must be applied at planting because it doesn't move fast enough. Potassium is needed right before the plant starts building grains. So you see, at the seedling stage, phosphorus should go in first. And then at the tillering stage, nitrogen should go because you need more vegetation at that stage. But once your plant start producing flower, is about to produce flower, you know that the grains are about to start coming. This is where potassium comes in to fight off diseases, to strengthen the stem, to carry the weight of the seed, etc. But at the end of it all, I want you to remember that soil itself is a living system. Only about 45% of soil health is mineral particles like sand or clay. The magic of the soil happens in the 5% called organic matter. Organic matter and living organisms. Now, if you don't feed the biology, which are these two, the chemistry of all the nutrients, they also stop working. So you see, the soil is a system. It's not just about the NPK. It's a system of all kinds of elements, air, mineral, water. And if one of them is failing, the soil will fail. And it will affect your farm investment. So now we know that guessing wastes money, and we know the Liebig's law limits our yield. The obvious answer is to start measuring and testing our soil. But we all know the reality. Many farmers, less than 0.5% of farmers in Africa test their soil. And this is possible because of some massive barriers, no fault of theirs. The first one is it costs just too much for many smallholder farmers to afford soil testing. And even when you can afford it, you have to wait 2 to 4 weeks to get your result. This is too slow. And in many cases, the laboratories where you can make this soil, they are too far away. And when you eventually get your result, they usually come in scientific jargons, which for many smallholder farmers and even big farmers alike, it's impossible to understand what the results are saying. And in all of this, there's logistics. That means you have to collect your sample, you have to transport them to the laboratory, etc. This is a nightmare for many farmers, and they just don't want to indulge in those kind of stress. So this is why the future has to change, and why through our soil testing technology, as an example, we are working to bypass these bottlenecks completely. We have developed this technology, which we will be introducing in collaboration with Mbeguzetu, to provide real-time, instant soil analysis directly in the farm, in the shops, in the dockers. This is how we eliminate wait times and high cost. And we can also bring precision agronomy right into the farmer's hands, right inside the dockers, right inside your phone. So while we push that technology forward, what can you do right now? There are 3 steps I want you to follow as you begin to prepare your mind for this soil revolution. The first one is to access. Combine whatever soil tests you have with field observation and crop history. Remember, agriculture is a science, and there's no silver bullet. So in as much as you do soil testing, take into account what you can see with your own eyes, and also the history, your history with the crop. When you get all this information, pair that crop with the right fertilizer at the right crop stage. That is the matching stage. You have to make sure that your soil need and your crop needs are a match when you are making that fertilizer purchase. And the third step is apply them precisely. As you are applying, you are watching for plant response. You are watching for deficiency, that we discussed. And then when you observe these things, you adjust. No matter recommendation you get, either from us or from anyone, always work with your own observation and tweak it accordingly. Because environment differs from place to place. Even between your farm and your neighbor's farm, the environment changes. So a good example of this framework is, let's take, for example, rice. In a rice field with, let's say, low nitrogen level in the soil results, but adequate phosphorus, you would expect to, generally speaking, place 200 kilograms of phosphorus, the phosphate P2O5, at the planting stage. And then you will follow that up with 600 kilograms of nitrogen, in this case urea, at the tillering stage. And heat it with the final nitrogen and potassium mix at the panicle initiation stage when the grains are about to start forming. You see, very simple 3 steps, no guessing involved. And of course, these numbers you see here, they are just generalized, just to make, illustrate the point clearly. So at the end, it all comes down to precision principles. It is not what you use in terms of fertilizer or input, but how you use it. It is the right nutrient in the right amount at the right time and in the right place. We need to stop paying the soil tax. You need to find your shortest stave, fix it, and then watch your yield multiply. It's been a pleasure having your attention so far. I will now open the floor for questions and discussions. Any questions? So you'll be hearing more from Mbeguzetu in the next days and weeks. Any questions? Any thoughts? I'm sure there are some experts in the room who would like to contribute to the conversation, especially around the simulation we did. Can somebody tell us more about how much they have lost so far?
Hello, good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
My name is Lynette. I'm the County Director, Agriculture, Nakuru, and I've been following your presentation, and I'm really impressed by what technology can do. My question was, have you ever done with a real, for example, a real crop on the ground, using the app? Have you used it probably and maybe tested on the issue to do with yield and fertilizer use? So that was my question. But otherwise, thank you for the presentation.
Thank you, Lynette. That was a very important question. Yeah, this technology has been tested across several agroecological zones. Matter of fact, there are some individual farmers who has been piloting with this technology in Kenya. I don't remember the exact locations, but if you're interested to speak to some of them, we can make the introductions, or you can talk to them and get their feedback and their experience so far in Kenya. We've had, farmers use this over the last 7 years in Senegal, in Nigeria, in the Middle East, Jordan, for example. We have someone from Jordan on the call. We've had really large farm cooperatives who have been using this technology with us as customers. In Italy, and Saudi Arabia, etc. So this is something that has been tested over the years, and we are hoping to essentially have some pilots through Mbeguzetu with some select farmers to also have a first-hand experience and testimonial about it. I hope that addresses your question. Another thing you can also do is if you have a recent soil testing result, as part of this pilot, we could also do side by side. We've done this with Mbeguzetu, where they had soil testing done at the lab, and we compared the results side by side, and it was highly consistent. Well, thanks for your question.
Yeah, thank you so much. I think in Nakuru, we've had several results. I think we were working with Calro last year, and we have some results. So probably you are welcome, probably with Mbeguzetu, if we can work together to pilot. Yeah, but otherwise, thank you for your response. Thank you.
Thank you, Lynette. Mbeguzetu can be contacted on the email highlighted on the screen. It says Mbeguzetu Limited, Ltd, at gmail.com, and the phone number as well for anyone who wants to reach out to them after this. But I'm curious to know what your soil tax is. Anyone, please. Let's make this a little bit. We have a lot of time left. Immaculate, you're free to jump in as well.
Yeah, very much. Gabriel, that was an exciting presentation, very well presented and very clear. Thank you. Allow me to request you, Gabriel, if you could just use the next 3 minutes to go over the soil tax again. I have a few people who joined a little bit later and may have missed that. And maybe that's the reason we are not getting a very good response to the question of who wants to test it. Maybe you can go over it once more, and then also in your presentation, make your screen a little bit larger so that we can actually see it. It was very in the presentation. Kindly, if you can just use the next 3 minutes, go over the soil tax as you request persons to bring real life cases that we can use. Thank you. And again, thank you so much, everyone, for participating, and we look forward to working with you in the coming days. Asante.
All right. So let's go through the soil tax again. Again, it's a very free tool. I will share the link in the chat so that you can follow along. Just one moment. So here is the soil tax calculator. You will find it in the chat. Just click the link and it takes you to the page. It's a free tool. You don't pay anything to use it. There is also the soil or the crop, beg your pardon, the crop suitability tool. I'll put that in the chat as well. These are all free tools for you to see and to have a feel of what we're talking about. So in this tool, I hope this is big enough. It says here, what is your soil costing you? Enter 5 details about your farm, and we will show you exactly how much value you are leaving in the ground every single year in your local currency. So we made an example with Kenya because this webinar is specially designed for Kenya farmers and stakeholders. And we selected Kenya as a country. And then for crops, these are all the crops that we have data for to run this simulation. And in as much as it's a simulation, the data you see are real data in terms of average yield for the country. Also some satellite analysis that were done in the background. So initially I did for potato, maybe I can try for coffee. And let's say for a 5 or 10 hectare. I know you use acre in Kenya, so let's stick with 5. So it can be as smallholder, close to smallholder size as possible. We can even do 1 hectare. Make it more realistic. And here's asking years without soil test. So how many years have you gone without testing the soil? We can say 10 years because many farmers haven't. Or let's say 7 years or 6 years. And if you have an idea of how much you spend on fertilizer, you can also provide for more tailored. Otherwise, it will estimate with historical data available. So here you can say yes or no. And when I click this, it will calculate how much I have been losing due to a mismatch between my fertilizer and what my soil need. In terms of production loss, it's estimated at 81,900 Kenya shillings per year for this particular scenario for coffee. And over the last 6 years, cumulative, we're talking 500,000 Kenya shillings in cumulative production loss due to this mismatch. But that is not all. You're also losing money because you are wasting fertilizer. So in terms of that, you also have like 1,400 per year and 9,000 cumulative over 6 years. This is a tax you are paying without knowing it. And we're in the age of carbon credits. So you're also losing money because carbon credit requires some soil testing to calculate how much credit you're sequestering from your farming practice. So that also amounts to around 25,000 over the last 6 years. Cumulatively, you are losing 564,000 Kenya shillings due to guesswork and blindly applying fertilizer in the soil. We can try and switch things up a little bit. Maybe we can try for tomato or cowpea. But let's see tomato first. The same parameters. For tomato, you are losing even more because you know tomato is a lot more fast moving. You're losing 192, which amounts, okay, not losing more, it's less than coffee. But this is a substantial amount of money you are paying in taxes, unknown taxes, due to a mismatch in fertilizer and seeds. If we try let's try cowpea or maybe wheat or rice. So feel free to use this tool and tell us what your soil tax looks like. And if you have anything to say about it, clarifications, whatnot, we can also talk about it in the meantime. The second tool that we also used was to show how different soil environment and properties can also influence the suitability of the crop. So you might be growing one crop now, but is it really suitable for your farm? And for that, we have this other tool called the crop suitability analysis. It says here, what can your land grow right now? So you may be growing something now, but is that really what your farm can really optimize for? This is the question that this tries to answer, and we're using data from NASA and FAO sciences. So basically, the formulas we use are backed with science for this. Again, you can select a different crop. We can go for avocado. We can, of course, if you have tested your soil, you will have these percentages because they influence. Again, it's very important to know that if your soil is draining water, then there's no way the nutrients can transport to the roots. So if you have like a lot of high drainage in your soil for certain crops, it means that whatever fertilizer you're using also is going to waste because they cannot hold. They will drain away. So let's try a situation where you have like a high clay content and probably even not zero is not possible, but let's try and pretend that these are realistic numbers. Okay, and for pH, let's try and go a little bit alkaline, say 7.3 or 7.6. Now, if you have your soil testing, you put in the real numbers so you can get a real insight from this tool. Okay. For organic matter, we could also try something higher, say 20. For many soil testing, it comes as percentage. You can always convert them to ppm, and ppm is equal to milligram per kilogram. So they're all interconvertible. Then for the farm itself, because it has to do with an actual farm, we were using Google Map to find a farm. So initially we used this farm in Nakuru, but we're going to go away to a different county. Where do we go? We have to stay within Kenya, or we can go to another country. Let's say towards the border. So this is a reserve, obviously. So let's see what the reserve has in terms of suitability for avocado. So I'm going to retrieve the GPS coordinates for this point. All right, and we come back to our tool. We'll replace all of this with that point. Now, you can wait for confirmation to see that you're getting the right thing. It's Narok, I suppose is correct. And when you click fetch, it tries to retrieve the climate information over the last 30 years, because this is a very strong indicator. And we're fetching this data from NASA Power and the other from SRTM. So the data shows that that place is not very flat, so it's like gently sloped. Slope also plays a very huge role in how your soil, your crop performs, generally speaking. When we go to analyze, we'll wait for a few seconds, and it says poor drainage, obviously, because we have very high level of sand in that soil. So it has very high risk of waterlogging, root suffocation, etc. I think we had high level of clay, not sand. Also, it's marginally suitable to grow avocado under this circumstance. Remember, these are just, I don't have the real data for that farm. So if you put in the real data, you get a real result. So instead of this, it thinks that based on the soil parameters right now, you should grow wheat or rice. These two crops are better suited for the current condition of the soil. Now, and as much as you want to grow avocado by all means, you will be leaving money on the table if you insist, because the soil is not suitable for that. Now, if I change this parameter from avocado to rice and leave everything the same, now because of the high clay content, it's going to report something different, because rice loves waterlogging. So it's a suitable. It's not perfect, but it's suitable. It's 4/5. You know, most of the conditions are optimal to grow rice. And it did not recommend anything else, because as far as this situation is concerned, rice is the only king that can thrive in this situation. So this and many more are what you can get when you test your soil. And you have to test your soil a bit more frequently, because we are experiencing dramatic climate changes across the world. So anyone has a result to share with us? Please, please, please. I want to hear from you. Okay, the link
as
for
they prepare to share that, Gabriel, there's a question from Lydia, where she's asking, is there a way I can work on the soil to improve the soil for any crop suitability? So possibly, Lydia, you may want to explain further what exactly you're asking, and then we can try to answer that. Gabriel has also shared the crop suitability tool, which you can also use. Thank you.
Thank you. And probably this was covered later. I missed some sessions, but I wanted to know, like, when the presenter was going through this, he mentioned however much you can try to try avocado, I use his words, try to plant avocado in a certain soil that doesn't accept avocado as a suitable crop. You'll be wasting your energy, money, resources, everything. That's how I was triggered to ask if well, the soil doesn't allow you to grow that type of crop, but is there a way you can improve the soil to suit that crop if it's the one that you want to plant? For example, it's lacking some nutrients, or the soil type is different, but you can improve it. Is there a way you can improve its fertility to suit that crop that you feel like you need or you intend to grow?
Thank you, Lydia. That's a very good question as well. I think your questions borders on environmental science and biology, generally speaking, because just like in parts of the world there is winter, other parts there is, like, scorched earth, tropical weather situation, and there's no way you can, maybe out of maybe any means, there is no way to make a desert become a forest. This is an extreme scenario, but the point is there is a limit to what every piece of land can actually achieve, and this is just how it is naturally. Because of this, it becomes pertinent to know what the soil really needs in terms of suitability, and work with that. So even if you fix the soil, like I'm trying to keep all the parameters for the soil texture evenly, even if I did this, okay, and the climate is not right, that crop will still not perform. Like you see in this case, I just made everything like 30 something percent, which is rare, but of course possible. Now the conditions looks very good for avocado to grow. So if you decide to, maybe by sheer will, change the soil composition to meet this requirement, the effort and labor required to do that, the digging, the mixing, the measurement, it will not be worth the time and the resources in the end, I think. But if you have a way to really, change the structure of the soil, of course you could do that. But again, I don't think it's is the best option to follow, I would say. So what you can do in that case is to find a land that is naturally, suitable with minimal effort to grow that crop, and lease it or buy it, I would say. But leasing is more realistic. So before you lease the land, you could also use this tool to check, if you should really lease that land for the crops that you intend to grow on it. I don't know if that slightly addresses your question. So it's a race against biology, and I don't think we can win if we have to change every soil to meet a certain preconceived objective. All right.
Lydia, what has been
Actually, yeah. I'm trying to get a crop suitability calculator from the link that you've shared. I don't seem to get it because it sends me to the soil. Yeah, it sends me to the soil costing, but I'll try to interact with it and figure out how to get there.
Okay. I want to just put a link directly. That's a short link because it's easier to type. But if you want to go directly to the page, I'm going to put that in the chat as well. There's a question from Hamza. So the results are accurate and it compares favorably with lab benchmarks. This has been tested across several dozens of laboratory results. And if you have yours as well, we could also benchmark together. It's been tested across hundreds, if not thousands, of lab results across the world. So I was saying, Lydia, you could also go to this link directly. Sometimes the browser could misbehave. This is the direct link. The link I put earlier was a short link to make it easier to type from the screen. But since we are putting the link directly, you could just go by clicking the link. We'll have a hard stop in the next few minutes. So it's been all right, Lydia. We could have a chat about that. You can send an email right here, and we could do that. So it's been a pleasure speaking with you all and interacting with you. I hope we have been able to add value to your time this afternoon. And please note that there will be at least 2 more other webinars on this series, and a lot more on other topics like marketing and financial literacy and whatnot. We plan to make this like a community where we will share meaningful experience, and we could invite even other people, experts from some of us in this call, to share their own knowledge in a 30 minutes window from time to time. But please expect, we expect to see you again next week, hopefully, and also subsequent weeks for the other part of this series. You would not want to miss those, because they are also very different and they bring in your perspective. Immaculate, do you have any final words?
Yes, I just want to say thank you so much for everybody who has participated. We are excited to be able to work with you on this new platform. We think it's very useful given the challenges that we see across the Kenyan landscape in terms of our soils and the challenges that farmers face. And I believe all of us here represented who have interacted with the soils of Kenya in our various agroecological zones, you'll agree with me that this is something that is long overdue. It's knowledge that we can use. It's knowledge that can be very useful. And the fact that this has been tested across 7 other countries gives us the confidence to believe that it will work well here. And personally, having used it, I wish to confirm that it compares very well. In fact, the recommendations given by the 2 are more detailed than what you get from the lab tests. So inviting everyone who's interested to work with us, feel free to share your coordinates. We're able to run the system and share with you an outcome of what your soil is and what the recommendations could be from the time when you sent us the coordinates of your farm. So karibuni sana, and we look forward to you participating in the next session, which we're also planning for Wednesday, the coming week. Kindly share the information with your friends and colleagues, and let's all do better in our farming enterprises. Asanteni sana. And thank you, Gabriel, for an excellent presentation.
A pleasure.